If you thought that the Michigan sign stealing scandal, allegations, whatever you want to call them, if you thought those days were over, you are not alone. I did too. I thought we had moved past all of that. I know that there are fans that think someday that banner's going to come down and Michigan's going to have to turn back in the national championship. I don't think those days are ever going to come. I don't think that it's ever going to come out that the NCAA is going to yank that thing back. I just don't think we're ever going to get there. And yet, there was a new wrinkle added to the saga on Tuesday when John Bacon, who is the world's foremost authority, and I don't think that's hyperbolic, I think it's legitimately the world's foremost authority on the University of Michigan, whether it be the football program, the actual college athletic department, whatever the case may be, John Bacon, if he says it about the University of Michigan, it's true. And he says that he was told that Chris Partridge, who worked on the Michigan coaching staff and was fired during the investigation of the sign stealing allegations, because, nobody... people get fired all the time when you've done absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever. When you're investigating wrongdoing and somebody gets fired and yet you're still like, we have done nothing wrong, have totally exonerated. That's generally not how it works, but that's neither here nor there. That Chris Partridge, who worked on the staff in Michigan, had hired attorney Tom Mars to represent him in a potential lawsuit, and that we are maybe days away from a federal lawsuit being filed by Chris Partridge against the University of Michigan for his firing. Now, Tom Mars, if you recognize the name maybe a little bit, is kind of like the thorn in the NCAA side a little bit. As a college sports lawyer, he has been the guy who has been kind of, for instance, like you as a sports fan might know like Dr. James Andrews' name, right? Like he's the world sports surgeon. If you are getting surgery and somebody on your favorite team or player, whatever the case may be, if they're having surgery, you'll likely hear like Dr. James Andrews. Tom Mars is sort of that guy, where if you want a college sports expert to represent you in a legal matter, Tom Mars is your guy. And the NCAA probably doesn't ever want to deal with Tom Mars anymore, because when Tom Mars brings things to court, Tom Mars wins. But Chris Partridge hired Tom Mars, according to this John Bacon report, to, quote, dig into how and why Ward Manuel, the Michigan athletic director, fired Partridge without any investigation or opportunity for him to tell his side of the story, and what Manuel told the Board of Trustees about the grounds for termination. Quote, there will be stunning new information, is what John Bacon said about the situation. Now, if you go back to last year, Partridge was the linebackers coach for Michigan, basically got fired because when they did their investigation, they said, quote, as we discussed today, the university has received evidence that you have failed to abide by the university directive not to discuss an ongoing NCAA investigation with anyone associated with the Michigan football program or others, and as a result has determined that you have failed to satisfactorily perform your duties. As a result, your employment with Michigan football coach has been terminated effective immediately, blah, 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 blah. So he got fired in November, right in the midst of kind of the heights of the situation. Now, apparently, his argument is, I never got a chance to tell my side of the story. I never got a chance to plead my case. Michigan found what they found, and he got fired. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't know what the legal process looks like for that. I also question, and genuinely, I wonder if you have been fired and Jim Harbaugh's moved on to the NFL. Chris Partridge has got a new job. He's working with the Seattle Seahawks. Mike McDonald, who was the Michigan defensive coordinator for a while, is now the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. They know each other. A big chunk of the Michigan coaching staff is not there any longer. Chris Partridge is not there any longer. Jim Harbaugh's not there any longer. Mike Elston's not there any longer. Some guys from that coaching staff have gone on to the NFL or just have not been retained at Michigan. Is there a chance that we're about to hear a songbird? That Chris Partridge is about to say, here is what went down, here's what happened, here's what I knew about it, and here's why I shouldn't have been the one to have been fired. Here's why I should have kept my job. Here's now maybe why you should have fired some other people. I don't think so. I would lean more towards no, because generally when you still have like a future in that chosen career path, you're not going to nuke, napalm, burn any bridges, right? Like you might still need Jim Harbaugh at some point. You might still need some of the coaches that were there. You might still need Connor Stallions on your side at some point. But if this goes to court, it gets messy because you're going to have to, there's going to be some things that Michigan absolutely is not going to want out there. Because I'm certain in their minds, the book has been closed. Like the Jim Harbaugh era, for all of the good and all of the bad in Michigan's mind, I'm certain we've shut that book, we put it out of our we put it on the shelf, and it is gone, it is out of the way, and we're never going to think about it ever again. And if this comes up where you have to prove that you fired this guy justly, that he deserved to be fired, there are a lot of skeletons coming out of that closet that I'm guessing Michigan absolutely 100% does not want to come out, because I would guess that it's safe to say that they did some wheeling, some dealing, some backroom deals. They ignored some things they probably wish they hadn't. Because listen, even if you are the most ardent Michigan supporter, you have to be able to put together okay, the NCAA says this happened. The Big Ten says this happened. The freaking FBI says this happened. There is copious amounts of video, photographic evidence that this happened. But Jim Harbaugh says it didn't happen. So who are we to believe? Everybody who doesn't have a reason to lie about this, or the guy who has a reason to lie about this. Now, again, going back to my comments earlier, if you investigate something and somebody gets fired for impropriety, that generally doesn't mean you've done nothing wrong. That is not an easy path to it's a not easy path to screw up. It's pretty straight. We're trying to figure out if you did anything wrong. Guy gets fired. Nothing absolutely whatsoever improper was done. Well, now wait a second. It doesn't take a science rocket to figure that out. But what did Michigan know? When did it know it? What did it hide? What did it cover up? It's not going to want that stuff out there in a court of law, because they're going to have the power to get that information. And so if that stuff comes out, it probably doesn't look good for the president, the board of trustees, the athletic department, for Jim Harbaugh himself. So they're going to be motivated to want to ensure that this does not go to trial. But at the same time, if they feel like they acted correctly, they're not going to want to just pony up. It's not going to be a small number, I don't imagine, because I'm certain Chris Partridge, even though he's got another job, would tell you that getting fired during the middle of that situation was incredibly detrimental to his job prospects. And I would say that if he still didn't have a job, that's probably true and fair, and you would have a leg to stand on. That, yes, if you find me as the scapegoat for this incredibly complex plot, and I'm the only one who faces repercussions from it, this would be horribly damaging to my future career prospects. But he's already got another job, so I don't know that he's got a great leg to stand on. I'm guessing neither side wants this to get to the point where we're sitting in court and you're getting you can't handle the truth. I don't think either side benefits or really wants to see that happen. But the idea that there is going to be a potential federal lawsuit over something that Michigan probably thought the book had been closed on and did not have to worry about anymore there is some interesting aspects there. And even the most diehard Michigan fan, I don't think, can deny that. We'll see how it plays out. I'll let you know because I'm going to keep watching it because I think the entire thing is fascinating. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you are listening to the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. See you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.